Trails to Azure, perspective. Sometimes perspective's important when it comes to a game review. Sometimes it's nice to know where the reviewer is coming from, whether they're a newcomer to the franchise or they've been with the franchise for a long time, for example. And in my instance, I'm a huge Legend of Heroes fanboy. A lot of you who've watched the channel already know this. But Trails to Azure in particular, and my history with it is I've been watching this game, I've been waiting for this game for probably about 10 years. I would stalk the Xseed forums back in the day when they were still publishing Legend of Heroes titles. I'd go on Reddit. I would look for so much as a whisper about this game being localized. And it's the missing game in the Legend of Heroes series, the Trails series in particular, that I haven't played yet. It's that middle piece of the puzzle that I've been waiting for, so I could essentially be fully caught up by and large. So playing this game is a dream come true. So let's get into it. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Legend of Heroes series, they are a series of turn-based RPGs with a heavy focus on characters, story, and world building. And Trails to Azure in particular is the sequel game to Trails from Zero. And both these games together create a self-contained story within the Legend of Heroes universe that can be enjoyed by themselves. Yes, they are part of a greater overarching series of games, but if you play just these two games, you will still get a lot out of it. You'll be able to follow what's happening, and they are still very enjoyable. So it is a good starting point if you want to get into this series. Trails to Azure was originally released for the PSP in 2011. Now it's 2021 and we're getting a PC version developed by fans, because the Legend of Heroes series is still a very niche series. Yes, it has grown in popularity, but back in the day, a small developer couldn't justify the cost of translation. Because Trails to Azure is about the same size as Trails of Cold Steel 3, another game in the overarching Legend of Heroes series, and that game is 2.4 times larger than The Witcher 3 script. And that needs to be translated. Another visualization for you, it's 2.3 times larger than the Lord of the Rings trilogy for a single game. And that's why it's all the more impressive that this was translated and developed as a top tier version of the game by fans, by Geofront specifically. And I just have to take a second and say, Geofront, thank you. You made this fan's dream come true. I'm the type of fan you did this for. I've been waiting for this game, just wanting to play it. So thank you. And Geofront also added a lot of quality of life improvements. They added a fast forward feature that really helps with the game's pacing. They added various display options, and they even added a dialogue log where you can go back and check what people said, which is important because there's a lot to be said in these games and sometimes you'll just miss something. And while I do commend Geofront's effort, especially in regards to the translation, it was damn near impeccable from what I could tell. There were some bugs in the game. There were instances where I would run off screen if I was using the fast forward option into a black space. A bunch of the save slots were unusable. I just couldn't load from them properly. Or in one particular instance, there was a car chase going on and then both the cars became invisible. So I was getting dialogue popping up with the sound effects of a car chase happening, but I couldn't see anything. So it was actually more funny than anything. But instances like this were rare for an 80+ hour experience, and they didn't bring down the game as a whole. They just are present and they are something that people need to be aware of. The fast forward feature that Geofront added to this game, I want to talk about for a minute, because it is an absolute godsend for this game and the Legend of Heroes series as a whole. Because in this game in particular, the setting is Crossbelt State, and it's a large area with multiple villages and a core major city with various districts. And as a result, there are dozens and dozens of NPCs to talk to in this game. And from the very outset of this title, you're pretty much able to visit the entirety of Crossbelt State immediately. And NPC dialogue resets every day, so everyone always has something new to say. And if you're anything like me, you like talking to people, seeing what's going on. It helps with the world building. You feel feel more engaged in what's happening with everybody, but that can affect the pacing sometimes, because sometimes you just want to go out and fight monsters again, or you want to carry on with the main story, but you just feel compelled to talk to everybody. The fast forward feature makes that task much more enjoyable because you're able to do it quickly now, zipping to and fro at lightning speed, so you're able to carry on with the other parts of the game you want to get to more quickly. And as a result, the fast forward feature helps with the pacing of this game, and it just makes it better. Something you've probably all noticed is this game looks a little dated. It looks dated even by 2011 game standards. Falcom, the developer of this game, has never been a leader when it comes to graphics. They're very much secondary, and they're very much functional when it comes to them. They're very much focused on characters and story, which is what I care more about anyway. But these graphics, with the enhanced display settings that Geofront added, they still make them look good. I still think they look incredibly charming. I think the chibi art style they're going for here still holds up very well. I think it aged well. I think it'll continue to age well because of it. And the character art for the characters still looks really great. We get to see their portraits in the dialogue box, which I always really enjoy. And in battle, even though we have these chibi characters, they still look cool. They perform awesome looking magic attacks. They got cool combination crafts as well. So even though the graphics aren't amazing, Falcom always does what they can with them, and they are always able to do a good job, at least in my opinion, of making things look cool. Now for how battles work. Old school. This is about as turn-based as it gets almost. You have a party of 4 generally, being able to select to either attack, move your character around the screen, use magic, use character-specific abilities, so on and so forth. But while that does sound fairly traditional, there is complexity to the battle system as well, particularly when it comes to attack order, with you being able to interrupt enemy magic attacks or abilities before they're set off, and being able to interrupt the turn order, propelling your characters to the front of the line in certain instances. And this is crucial because a lot of not only bosses, but regular monsters will have abilities that could potentially wipe out your characters in a single turn. So you need to be very wary of what attacks are coming and whose turn it is. And like minigames, being aware of how many magic points you have, for example, is important. Or how many CP points, for example, you have in this game to be able to use character-specific abilities. This type of resource management is very crucial in the Legend of Heroes series because you just can't use everything willy-nilly. You generally need to keep something in reserve in case something pops up that you need to deal with. So you do have to be a little bit more cautious at times, particularly for the more difficult fights. So there is a challenge there. And there's very difficulty modes as well. Things got a little bit easy for me on the mode I was playing, but it was still really enjoyable. The dial always got turned up with boss fights, and if you want a difficult challenge, that is definitely available for this type. So by and large, I still really enjoyed the battle system, but one thing I can recognize is that without the fast forward mechanic, it would be quite slow. Characters move slow, enemies move slow. Heaven forbid you get ambushed. It seems like an eternity when you have half a dozen enemies all having their turn before you, attacking you, and you just have to sit there. It just takes a long time, it seems. So the fast forward feature really helps with that. It really helps with pacing, and once again, just speeds things up a little bit. And aside from battling monsters, carrying on with the main story, or talking to NPCs, there's a lot of different mini games to enjoy as well. There's a casino you can visit with myriad different card games. You can play Pom Pom Party, which is this game's Tetris-like and really fun. And there's also the fishing minigame, and I must be super basic, but I love fishing minigames, particularly in the Legend of Heroes series. And this one's super easy. There's a prompt that pops up when you cast your line. You catch the fish, and that's pretty much it. You just use different types of bait. And I really enjoy it. And they make it really rewarding to do the fishing because there's a whole quest line that goes with it. You get great rewards for doing it. And things of this nature just always help with a game because it spices up the gameplay. And if you get bored of doing any one particular thing, there's side activities for you to enjoy. And I gotta touch on the story because it's a Legend of Heroes game and it's the most important part of the entire experience. And this game reminds me a lot of Suikoden 2 when I went into it for the first time. Suikoden 2, for those of you that don't know, is my favorite game. And before I played that, I was spoiled for a good chunk of it. I knew the broad strokes of what was already going to happen. And while yes, it took away some of the surprise, it still ended up being my favorite game of all time, because even though I knew what was coming, it was constructed and told in such a way that it was still super compelling to watch and still very enjoyable. And that is very much the case with Trails to Azure. Because I played a lot of the games later in the series before this one, I wanted to read up on the events of this game so I had context for what was going on. And I can easily say, even though a lot of stuff was spoiled, a lot of broad strokes, I still immensely enjoyed this game. And I still got goosebumps on my arms seeing events I had only heard about, because once again, they were told and portrayed in such a way that it was still compelling to watch, even though I knew it was coming. And I think that is just indicative of the quality this game has when it comes to constructing a coherent, well-told story with characters that are fully developed and interesting to watch. If a game has a great story with great characters, and even if you hear about it beforehand, you know what's going to happen, it's not going to matter. And I think once again, that is just a testament to how good this game is from a story perspective, that spoilers can't ruin it. And just as important as the story, the characters are crucial to Legend of Heroes games, and this game's no different. There's more development for the characters in the second game. A particular standout for me being Randy in this game. He had some great dialogue and some high emotion moments, thoroughly enjoyed them. And the themes surrounding forgiveness, imperfection, and failure all resonated with me on some degree to a personal level. And that all helped with my immersion into this game, and it just made the characters incredibly relatable, which is something I always enjoy. It just gets me more invested in the characters in general, and this game did a great job in doing that. But one character that stands out amongst all of them, I would say, is Crossbelt State itself, the setting. Crossbelt is a little state situated between two superpowers who both want control of it. And you can't help but cheer for Crossbelt as it navigates itself and dances between these two superpowers, trying to navigate itself forward without being consumed at the same time. And it is a great watch, and is easily one of the best parts about this game, and one of the most fascinating aspects of the Legend of Heroes series at large. Trails to Azure, very much like all of its sister games, is very much a slow burn at times. There's generally a lot of downtime between significant story beats, and often you have to do certain side quests, such as talking to X NPCs or killing X mobs or running to various locations in order to progress the story. And this can get a bit slow at times. But credit where credit's due, some of these side quests can be very rewarding narratively speaking, and they can give you a broader, greater understanding of the overall story and the greater Legend of Heroes universe at large. So a lot of them can be worth doing. And the fact that you have such a good story going on with a grand conspiracy taking place that you're painfully aware of, along with solving a lot of the character-specific conflicts that are in the game, it's enough to propel you forward through the slower bits. And a quick aside, the translators and developers at Geofront, they added their own personalized messages into the treasure chests of the final dungeon. And it was simply them sending their well wishes, cheering you on as you finish the game, and just sharing some of their personal struggles and thoughts when it came to developing this port of the game. And this swirling of different emotions, with me already being at an emotional high coming to the finale of this game, mixing with the real world thoughts and emotions of people who love this game and love this series just as much as I do, it created a unique experience I'll probably never have in the game again. Just being able to connect with other fans and the developers of this version on that level at the very end, it really was a unique moment, and it's one I'll always treasure forever. So thank you very much, Geofront, for sharing your thoughts and feelings about the development of this title. It just really added to the ending of the game, and it's a fond memory I'll have forever. So thanks for that. And like always, when it comes to Falcom Games and their music, you probably know what I'm going to say already. It's banging. You do a great job with the soundtrack, the battle themes are bumping, and no matter what the game's trying to portray, whether it's suspense, mystery, tragedy, or dealing with the supernatural, there is always an appropriate theme to go with it, and I always take notice. And I Shazammed more than a few different tracks as I just wanted to listen to them hours on end later when I was done. So even though it can be a long game, at least you have amazing music to go with it. Trails to Azure was an amazing experience and well worth the wait. It has a top tier level story with amazing characters that are likable and that you are easily invested in. It has a great combat. Yes, it's turn-based. Yes, it's classic, but it's still fun and it still has strategic depth to it. The graphics, while dated, still hold up very well thanks to the art style, and it's still a pleasure to look at. And the quality of life improvements added by Geofront really help with the overall pacing, because otherwise the game can be a bit of a slow burn, and people really need to be invested in the world and characters in order to see it through. And I think the developers at Falcom did a good job at doing that. And it all pays off with an epic finale that is incredibly satisfying. So Trails to Azure, if you're looking to jump into the Legend of Heroes series, these two games are just as good as a spot as any to do that. I highly recommend them. Check them out. Fulfilling a 10-year-long desire. There's nothing like it. And I can't wait to see where the Legend of Heroes series takes us going forward. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you later.